Last night, you dreamed. Maybe you don't remember it. Maybe it was strange or frightening or so vivid it felt more real than the room you woke up in. But your brain spent hours constructing an entire world inside your skull. A world with people, places, emotions, and events that never happened. You didn't choose to do that. You never do. And neither did your ancestors. For 300,000 years, before electricity, before cities, before any of the structures that define modern life, human beings closed their eyes every night and entered that same strange interior world. They dreamed, and what they dreamed about, and what they did with those dreams, might completely change the way you understand your own mind. Because the dream you had last night was not random noise. It was not a glitch. It was one of the most ancient and deliberate processes your brain knows how to run. This is the story of what ancient humans actually dreamed about, and why your brain is still doing it. Let's start with what a dream actually is. When you fall into REM sleep, rapid eye movement, the phase where dreaming is most intense, your brain becomes almost as active as when you're fully awake. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and self-monitoring, goes quiet. But your amygdala, the region that processes fear and threat, becomes hyperactive. Your hippocampus, the memory center, begins replaying and recombining fragments of your recent experience. The result is something that feels like lived experience but follows no rules of logic. You fly, you run, and your legs don't work. Someone you love is suddenly a stranger. This is not a modern phenomenon. This is what has been happening inside every human brain every night for hundreds of thousands of years. David Sampson, a sleep researcher and anthropologist at the University of Toronto, studied sleep patterns in the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. His research revealed that these communities move fluidly through REM sleep across multiple cycles in a single night. More REM sleep, more dreaming, by design. So what were ancient humans actually dreaming about? Kelly Bulkeley, a dream researcher at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, analyzed dream content across cultures and history. His conclusion: across all human populations, certain categories appear with extraordinary consistency. The most common is threat simulation. Antti Raivansuo, a Finnish neuroscientist, developed what is now called the threat simulation theory of dreaming. The idea is this: dreaming evolved, at least in part, as a biological training ground, a safe space for the brain to rehearse threatening scenarios and practice responses. When you dream of being chased, of falling, of being attacked, your brain is not malfunctioning. It is running a drill. For your ancestors, this was not abstract. The threats were real. Every night, in the dark, there were predators. Leopards moved silently through tall grass. Lions hunted after sunset. A brain that had rehearsed the fear response, mapped escape routes, practiced the adrenaline surge, was measurably better prepared than one that had not. Your nightmare about being chased is a 30,000-year-old survival program your brain never deleted. But threat simulation was only part of what ancient humans dreamed about. The second category is social complexity. Human brains are social organs. When the prefrontal cortex goes offline at night, the older, more emotionally raw regions take over. And what those regions produce is not logic. It is relationship. Dreams about people you know, about conflict and reconciliation, about being accepted or rejected by the group. Bulkeley's cross-cultural research consistently shows that the majority of dream content involves other people, known people. The social world rendered vivid and unstable in the dark. For your ancestors, this made practical sense. Hunter-gatherer communities were small, typically between 20 and 150 individuals. Your survival depended entirely on your position within that group. Who liked you? Who would share food with you when the hunt failed? The social calculations required to navigate that world were staggering, and the brain used the night to rehearse them. You dream about the people in your life because your ancestors dreamed about the people in theirs. The emotional stakes have changed. The neural mechanism has not. Now imagine what a night actually looked like. The fire is low. The savanna is dark in every direction. Around you, the group sleeps in overlapping clusters, bodies arranged close together for warmth and collective alertness. You sleep, and somewhere in the deepest hours, the dream comes. You are running, or someone from the group is there, speaking words that don't quite make sense, carrying an emotion that feels enormous. And then you wake briefly in the dark, a natural feature of hunter-gatherer sleep, documented by Sampson's research, and the dream is still present, vivid, real in a way that ordinary memory is not. What did your ancestors do with that? They talked about it. Polly Wiesner, an anthropologist at the University of Utah, spent decades studying the Jew/Hoansi sand people of the Kalahari Desert. Her research, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2014, found that nighttime conversation was qualitatively different from daytime conversation. Daytime talk was practical, economic, but nighttime conversation around the fire shifted almost entirely toward the imaginative and the narrative. Stories, and crucially, the discussion of dreams. Dreams were not dismissed. They were not treated as biological noise. They were treated as information, as windows into something the waking mind could not access directly. A dream about conflict within the group might be brought to the group and discussed, diffusing tension before it became real. A dream about a threat might put the community on alert in a way that improved their collective chances of survival. Dreams were data, and the people around the fire knew how to read them. Here is the counterintuitive twist. Modern culture treats dreams as the least reliable form of mental experience. Random, meaningless. The noise your brain makes while processing the day. Something to laugh about over breakfast and forget by noon. Your ancestors believed the exact opposite, and there is growing scientific evidence they were not entirely wrong. Matthew Walker, a sleep scientist at the University of California, Berkeley, has demonstrated that dreaming actively supports emotional regulation and the integration of difficult experiences. People who dream about stressful events show measurably lower emotional reactivity to those events over time. The brain uses the dream state to process and detoxify difficult emotions, to encounter the fear again in physical safety, until it loses some of its charge. Your ancestors sat around the fire and shared their dreams not because they were primitive, but because they were doing something modern therapy has only recently rediscovered. They were processing collective emotional life in community. They were giving shape to the invisible interior world and making it a shared object of attention. The brain that dreamed about the predator woke up, named the fear aloud, and heard someone else say, "I dreamed that too." That brain was measurably better regulated than one that dreamed alone and in silence. And here is where it comes back to you. You still have the same brain, the same REM architecture, the same amygdala firing in the dark, producing the same ancient categories of dream content: threat, relationship, loss, pursuit, transformation. Your nervous system is still running the same programs it ran 50,000 years ago on the savanna. The hardware has not been updated. Only the world around it has changed. But you wake up alone, or beside someone already looking at their phone. The dream dissolves within minutes. Neuroscientists estimate that half of all dream content is forgotten within 5 minutes of waking, and 90% within 10. The emotional content it was trying to process has nowhere to go. It doesn't get named. It doesn't get shared. It simply disappears back into the noise of the day. Your ancestors had a fire. They had a circle of people who understood that the night meant something, who knew that what happened in the dark hours of the mind was worth bringing into the light of the morning, who sat together and made the invisible world visible, if only for a little while. You have an alarm and a commute. The dreams haven't changed. Only the container for them has. Last night, you dreamed. And somewhere in that dream, in the chase or the stranger wearing a familiar face, your brain was doing exactly what it has always done, running the ancient program, processing the ancient fears. Your ancestors woke from that same dream, looked at the fire, and told someone what they saw. What do you do with yours?